As short riders go, I would be surprised if I wasn't up there or down there with some of the shortest riders. I'm 5 foot tall, which is around 151 centimeters, and I have around a 28-inch inseam. This means that almost any bike is too tall for me, in quotation marks, and I say in quotation marks because I struggled a lot when I first got my bike and I ended up lowering it, but slowly I'm getting used to the height and I'm actually considering raising my bike back to stock height. So, do I regret lowering the bike, and why do I want to raise it again if I struggled so much? Those are pretty good questions, which hopefully I'm going to answer in this video. So first off, when my bike was at stock height, I couldn't touch both feet to the ground at the same time. As a beginner, this doesn't inspire much confidence. This clip is from the evening after I passed my CVT, and you can see how I have to hop from foot to foot to keep my balance, since I couldn't flat foot the bike. When you're still learning basic controls like moving off, braking, stopping, changing gears and so on, this is an additional layer of complexity that you really don't need. If you're anything like me, I found the basics even really difficult at times. For this reason, I lowered my bike by about 3 centimeters, and I did this by putting on some shorter shocks, and this helped so much. You can see how the bike fits me now. I can't flat foot it, but when I get both feet on the ground, I can get like at least the balls of my feet on the ground, so I have probably the front half of each foot on the floor, which is so much more comfortable than not having any of your foot on the floor. Of course, with one foot on the peg, I can keep the other foot flat on the ground. As I'm getting better and I'm getting more used to this bike, I'm slowly getting more used to the idea of only putting one foot down when you come to a stop, rather than trying to put both feet down. I think as a beginner, when you start to lose your balance, it's kind of your instinct to want to throw both of your feet down, and obviously if you can't touch the floor, you're just gonna crash, which is not fun. But as I'm getting better, when I come to stop at lights, I'm starting to put my left foot down, keep my right foot on the peg, and for this reason, I want to try and raise the bike back up, so that pretty much I have no choice but to do this. This is because I don't want to build up a bad habit of trying to drag both feet on the ground when I come to a stop, or like try and waddle the bike, if I simply don't have the option to do that. I also worry that when I go to buy my next bike, I don't want to be limited on the kinds of bikes I can buy. There's of course going to be some bikes that are just way too tall and just are never going to feel comfortable, and I'll probably avoid those or make some modifications to them, like lowering them or getting a lower seat. But at least for the most part, I want to be able to ride most bikes around the height of my stock CBF 125 without an issue. I want to be able to borrow a friend's bike, I want to be able to hire a bike, I want to be able to test ride a bike, all of these things. If I can't get comfortable at kind of a normal height for a bike, I worry that I'm not going to be able to do this. So for this reason, I'm considering raising my bike back to the stock height, which I'll probably do quite soon. And even though it would be difficult at the start, I'm really looking forward to learning on it, and it just will open up so many more options for me if I want to do any of those things that I mentioned before. Another reason I want to raise it is because I'm looking to do my A2 test, and the test centre that I contacted did have lowered bikes, but I just don't want the height to be an issue when I'm doing my test. I just want to be able to focus on doing the manoeuvres and getting used to the bigger bikes. I don't want to have that extra layer of challenge that I had when I was first learning, just in case their bike, even the lowered one, is still taller than mine and I'm not used to that. So as I'm thinking more seriously about doing my license, I'm starting to think about these good habits that I can build up, like only having one foot on the ground when you come to a stop, and how I can make life easier for myself when I decide to buy a new bike or to do my test. So, do I regret lowering the bike? No, not at all. And I would still recommend, if you can't flat foot your first bike, or at least you can't get both feet down on your first bike, either lower it or get a lower bike. It just makes it so much easier when you're first learning, and if you do panic and you try and throw your feet down, you're at least not going to crash. I've crashed so many times just from trying to stop and trying to put my foot down, and the bike will just fall over. So once I lowered the bike, it made it so much easier. Those crashes were basically eliminated. So I would still recommend, if you can't touch both feet to the ground, definitely make yourself able to do that. One thing that I found really useful, and I'm so glad I did it, was to look into getting boots that either have a really thick sole or a really thick insole. I got boots that have about 4.5 centimeters if you combine the insole and the sole. Basically it gives me like an extra inch to touch the ground, and this makes it so much easier when I have one foot on the peg and one foot on the floor. My leg is basically bent. It's so comfortable. You don't have to struggle to reach the floor, so I definitely look into getting some boots with heels or raised insole. In women's boots, these are pretty easy to find. In men's boots, you'll probably just have to look for something with quite a chunky sole. But they are out there, and I definitely would recommend getting them. It's probably been one of the most single helpful things I've done. Even just if it gives you extra confidence to do things, it doesn't actually help you practically, even though it does do that. But even if it just gives you more confidence, that is so helpful. That's what I would recommend if you're a beginner who can't touch the floor and who struggles with that. Either lower your bike, you can lower the seat, pretty much like take the padding out of the seat and make it lower, or you could just fit a lower seat, although that can get pretty expensive, so I would probably do other things before I did that, but that's definitely an option. And try and get some really chunky boots. They'll just give you a little bit extra height, and it's so useful. I still, like I say, I don't regret lowering the bike. I still would recommend lowering the bike. I think as I'm getting more comfortable on the bike, I would love to raise it back up, add that little challenge, a little extra challenge, and get a little bit more skilled while I'm at it. It just so happens that the bikes that I like tend to be quite low anyway, so this isn't necessary for me, but I just want to become a more well-rounded rider. I don't want to have to worry in 3 years' time, oh, that bike's too tall for me, I've never ridden a bike at that height. Let me know what you guys think. If you're short, do you have any short rider tips? Do you guys lower your bike? What do you recommend? And what do you think about me raising my bike back to stock height? I'm kind of nervous, so should I go for it? Let me know what you think. Safe riding, and I'll see you guys in the next one.